Thank you. This meeting of the General Government Committee is being held in a hybrid meeting format with virtual and in-person participation by members of the public, staff, and council. This meeting is also being live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. A friendly reminder to all participants to please use their microphone at all times for the benefit of those participating in council chambers and joining remotely. And I believe we have Councillor Rob Tyler Moran, who is participating remotely today. I'll now call this meeting to order. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land in which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas, more specifically the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gun Shop Treaty in 1788, and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. So I'd like to call a roll call, please.
I think we are.
You are in there? Okay. Thank you. So, moving on to the consent agenda. We do have some polls by Mayor Collier for 4.1, 4.3, 4.5, 4.6, and 4.7.
Through you, Madam Chair, prior to consent agenda, can we do adoption of minutes?
Oh, yes, thank you. So adoption for the minutes on the April 14th meeting and also for the closed session meeting on April 14th. You have a vote. It's sort of forwarded by motions approved, but no resolutions here, no. So Councillor Lee, Regional Councillor Lee, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. So, for the consent agenda, the only two items that have not been pulled are 4.2 and 4.4. You're going to move those? Thank you, Marilyn Crawford, Regional Councillor Crawford. So we'll go to 4.1. Mayor Collier? Sorry? We can. You want to vote on those? Well, Marilyn just approved it. Sorry, go vote it. I'll get there. Call a vote. There we are. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Collier, 4.1. Mayor. Yeah, I get.
School board trustee Collier.
School board trustee. Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure who authored the report, so whoever wants to answer. Just quickly on the HAF funding. So when we applied for this HAF funding, we submitted, was it 7 different projects? I don't know if it's Ms. Brownridge or Liam. Was it 7 projects we used on the application process?
It was 7 initiatives.
Okay. Which are the initiatives? Are these that we're seeing the list of the ones we actually applied for, or are we using the HAF funding for different things? Here we go.
The 7 initiatives are not necessarily the ones on the chart. So the initiatives were speaking mostly to things that we would undertake as a town to improve our Housing Accelerator Fund. What's been identified in the budget here speaks to what we'll be using the full allocation of HAF funding for. So the actual 7 initiatives that we're undertaking only represent a fraction of the total funding that we're receiving. This is speaking more towards the full $22 million in funding.
Okay. And not that I don't support these items here, but, and I'm not trying to criticize, we got the funds for moving forward 7 initiatives that aren't these initiatives here. Some of them might be, but I want to make sure that those initiatives that we did apply for are still going forward, since we're using the HAF funding for other things.
Yes, those initiatives are priority 1 and must be done first. They're tracked on milestones by CMHC as we're doing our reporting. We don't have an option to not do those milestones to be eligible for the funding, so those are still receiving the priority.
Okay, that's my concern, is I don't want for any reason to give up. I hate to give money back.
Absolutely, so do
Okay. Just to clarify for the fairgrounds at 4.8, wasn't it 4? Is that, I don't know if that's a Mr. Mayor the question or who that's to, but I, for some reason, thought that project was 4 million. It's listed here as 4.8.
Through the chair to Mayor Collier, that would include the stage as well, which would have
Okay.
been separate from the
Which
fairgrounds.
was 750 or something, okay. That's my only questions on this. Happy to move it, Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you. All in favor, could you vote, please? Okay, Mayor Collier, you pulled 4.3?
Probably.
You did. Sorry.
Thank you, and not sure who this is, Mr. Jackson. Just, and my question's gonna be the same on the next 2 or 3 of these, and this is to do with our procurement policies and Canadian content and Canadian service providers. So first things first, I'm hoping it is, but is Powcon Inc. a Canadian company?
Through the chair, yes, they are.
Okay, located here, is it local company? Is it in Durham?
GTA based.
GTA, okay. The equipment they're installing, and I asked this question a month or so ago on another project. I understand that it was for a replacement playground section on an existing playground, so it had to be the manufacturer that was originally done, which was a US company. Now that we're hopefully revamping our purchasing policies and everything to be more local and Canadian bought, is there anything in the contract award specifying that this equipment is going to be from a Canadian manufacturer, if possible?
So just a couple of things. First of all, with respect to this project and a couple of others that are on today's agenda, is when the detailed design was complete, the specifications and the tender process began, obviously there was a time in advance of when the tariffs were known and sort of in place. So within those bid documents, there was not necessarily a Canadian content requirement for these projects. What I will say is the vast majority of the components of these parks are Canadian. So things such as obviously the trails and asphalt, the nets, the furniture, the lights, the line painting, all of those components are Canadian manufactured. The only components that are not Canadian manufactured are the playground components. The installation of and supply of those products are all Canadian. So the only part of these components where they would be considered American would be the manufacturing of the playground components.
Okay, and I do recognize that these RFPs went out well before some of the tariff talks and everything that's happening now. I guess, and this is part of a further conversation, because I have questions in the next report about the way that we evaluate and critique the RFPs that come back and scoring. Going forward, I'm hoping it is the intent that we're going to be specifying in future RFPs the Canadian content, not requirement, what's the right word here? Preference. is sort of the way I want to see a lot of these things going forward. This one you're saying falls under the old rules, but going forward, is that the intent to start looking at ways that we can get more local and more Canadian content in our municipalities?
Through the chair to Mayor Collier, we are looking at the legal requirements as well. So our procurement manager is reviewing the bylaw and our legal right to do some of these things. So there is a working group in the region that she participates in, as well as the GTH, Toronto area, GTA. And so we are looking at various things on what we can do from a legal perspective.
I'm not going to get too in the weeds on this because it's not relevant to the report, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I'm happy to move it, Chair.
Are there any further questions? Can I have a mover for 4.3? Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Vote, please. Thank you. That's carried. So, Mayor Collier, 4.5. Yes. Never remember that.
Thank you again. Quick question. Glad to see this Canadian company. I hope that we can keep including that in our report so I don't have to ask the questions. Happy to see that. I don't see in the report where it speaks to the funding. We have a policy, whatever you want to call it at this point, that says any vehicles with longer than, I think it's an 8-year lifetime, over 100,000 will be debentured. I don't see any reference to that in here, so I just want clarification, please.
Through the chair, Mayor Collier, so the capital detail sheet is attached, which does show that long-term debt is the funding source for this.
Let me see. Oh, okay. I didn't know that's what you meant by long-term debt. Okay, so that's debenture financing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? A motion to approve? Councillor Henry, thank you. All in favor, please vote. Thank you. That's carried. So, Mayor Collier, you're on to 4.6. There you go.
Thank you. Similar line as before, only this one I think was the one that had the RFP review sheet in it. So let me look. No, it didn't. It's the next one. Same question, Canadian company, any specifications in the award that this will be Canadian manufactured?
Through the chair, it's basically the same response to the St. Catherine of Siena. The timelines were the same from a procurement perspective.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Anything further? No more questions? Councillor Henry?
Thank you. I just want to say to the team that was on this project, thank you very much, because we had a lot of pushback from the community and they pivoted and did a fantastic job, and the community thanks them very much. So thank you.
Councillor Rob Tyler Moran, you had a question? No? You were there a minute ago, that's all. Okay, thank you. You want to, Councillor Henry, going to move that? Thank you. All right, can we have a vote on that, please? Thank you, that's carried. And 4.7, Mayor Collier, the last one you pulled.
So we received this grant funding in 2021. Part was for this, part was for the cricket pitch, which is now complete. This is for, in the report, upgrades to the basketball courts and skate park. So my first question is, how old are these existing facilities?
Through the chair, the existing facilities, they would be in well in excess of 20 years. They're the existing skateboard park and basketball court south of the parking lot expansion adjacent to the artificial turf fields.
Okay, I don't think quite that old, but okay, they weren't in the last 10 years, but okay, I recall them being built. I'm just wondering, because this talks about, it says this was for upgrades. The proposal is for all new facilities. Okay, it's for, we have existing basketball, existing skate park. I don't know if they're at end of life or not. Are they at end of life?
They would be considered end of life, yes.
Has there been extensive maintenance required and, closures to perform this maintenance and loss of use?
Not necessarily closures, no, but the assets have degraded significantly over that period of time.
And the new, well, that's now gonna be a dog park. I'm wondering, I guess, because two issues I have here. One, the funding we got in 2021, 4 years ago. Things are probably double the price today. So what we got the funding for that would have covered a lot of it before isn't gonna cover it now. We're gonna have to come up with new money. Would it not be more effective to do the upgrades to these existing and put the dog park somewhere else rather than completely rebuild all new at a higher cost?
I think a couple of changes occurred since the original funding application was made when the replacement of those assets were identified. Subsequent to that time frame, we identified through the Rec and Parks Master Plan, the creation of a community park, recognizing the growth within downtown Ajax and the fact that there are not sufficient outdoor recreational amenities to support really existing and future population demand. So through that process, it was identified that we would then create a community park where the existing Howard North soccer field exists. And over the last 1 to 2 years, we've developed obviously a concept plan that was developed, stakeholder meetings held, and council endorsed earlier this year, that conceptual plan. Before we went down this path, we had discussions with the province regarding the funding application to ensure that by relocating these facilities to the community park, that the funding would still be eligible, in which case we did get the confirmation of that. I guess my thought, not only my thought, but collectively our thoughts were to create a community park with all the amenities in one location, because it's not just the basketball court, it's not just the skateboard park, it's splash pads, it's pickleball courts. It's really creating that focal point sort of within the downtown area that will serve the future needs of residents over the next 10, 20, 30 years. So it's really putting that community infrastructure in place to support growth, and we feel that it's best in that one neighborhood park design as opposed to having a secondary location where it's currently located. We felt that that was a better location for a leash-free park when we looked at both components of the ACC as one project.
So I guess in looking at this, and I mean, if we weren't 142,000 over budget on just the design, I don't even want to think of what the actual cost to build is going to be at this point. But just on the design, it makes me ask these questions because that's significant. I mean, I don't recall how much actual grant we got. Do you remember how much grant we got for this?
Cass might recall specifically.
Okay,
It
there
was
we go.
3 million total or something?
Through the chair to the mayor, yeah, for these two projects in particular, the skate park and the basketball court was around 120,000 and the skate park was around 400,000.
Okay, and we're gonna spend a significant portion of that just for design. And I think these were supposed to be the parking when the hospital did their last expansion too, which didn't go ahead. But I don't know, it's a bit frustrating to me. It is, I guess, what it is at this point. I did miss the meeting where the design was approved. I did read the report, but I wasn't at the meeting to make my comments then. I want to talk about the evaluation criteria on page 189 that I referenced earlier and where we're going to be going with this moving forward. And to Ms. Valentin, I hope we're going to have a meeting to discuss this. We talked about it at the mayor's meeting today. I think Christy's going to set something up to discuss this in more detail, because very honestly, evidence of insurance in WSIB, I mean, who cares? They need this anyway. We're going to get that at some point. I don't understand why this is a criteria versus, is this a Canadian or Durham company, and are they using locally procured products? I am hoping that we're going to look going forward at revamping this way that we do business. And you referenced, Ms. Valentin, what we're allowed to do. I think we're allowed to do pretty much anything we want now that the changes have been made provincially, maybe not completely. but I don't think we're under the same restrictions that we always were. It's always been not even a concern. It just irks me that hands are tied and we have to buy our Ram plow trucks from Toronto when we have a Chrysler dealership in Ajax. That type of thing. I think we need to be looking at this, and I think this is a good opportunity to be revamping this and looking at the way we award some of these going forward. Not a question, because I think we're going to have a meeting next week to discuss, and we can sort of go through that at that point. I think that's all my questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Counselor Henry?
I just had one question. I had someone approach me on the weekend and ask me if the soccer fields would be removed for this project.
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, yes, the Harwood North soccer field would be removed.
And is there a replacement? Like, are they not in use? Is there a replacement for it? Because I got a little pushback from the resident when I said I thought maybe one section was being removed, and they said they're in use all the time. Could you speak to that?
Through the Recreation Parks Master Plan and discussions that we have ongoing with Ajax Soccer Club, we have a surplus of soccer fields within the town of Ajax inventory that there are plenty of opportunities where we can program soccer sort of on an as-needed basis. So there's not the demand for our soccer fields that there perhaps was or projected to be in the future. We consider that we have a surplus of soccer fields in Ajax.
And with that surplus, I just want to be clear that we have a lot of friends from the Falby Court area. This won't be affecting them by removing a field and having for them to participate in soccer in the future, to have their parents drive them to a different location. So by taking away something that's walkable to that area is not going to create a problem where we're putting pressure on parents to have to drive to a different area to use different soccer fields, correct? That's been looked at?
I would suggest that the majority of residents in Falby, their children will benefit from this redevelopment versus those that would be participating in soccer. There's, you know, the composition of soccer and the need to drive to a soccer field is pretty much understood when you're in the soccer community as a parent and family. So yeah, will there be or could there be some residents in Falby Court whose children may have played at the Harwood North soccer field? I guess that's possible, but it would be very few.
Okay, I just wanted to bring this concern forward. I think the splash pad in that area is going to be fantastic, but it was a concern, so I wanted to bring it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Bauer, you have a question? You're on. No?
Yep, now I'm on. Thank you very much, Chair Dice. Good afternoon. So I just wanted to make a comment in defense of the current design to replace the basketball court and skateboard park with a leash-free dog park and moving them closer to the central where the rest of the park will be. I think that's a really good move if you're a family and maybe some of your kids are going to go skateboard or play basketball and others are going to be in the splash pad or playing in the park area where everybody's a little bit closer, because the distance right now based on where the court and skateboard park are, it's a little bit far away from where the new park will be. So I really like that idea of centralizing it. And it also matches a little bit of how Audley Rec is set up in the back with everything sort of centralized. But my question is about, I think in the report, Director Meredith, you mentioned that there will be a public information center, a PIC event at some point. Do you know when roughly that will be?
I would expect that to be after the summer, so probably in the September-October timeframe.
Okay. And it'll be advertised so that people can, and that session, it's to see, it's different than the open house?
Yeah, there'd be more details provided. At the original open house, it was more conceptual. There'd be more details provided. At the next meeting, there may be a couple of options presented to get some feedback from residents, and there would be also information conveyed on our website as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it's going to be an absolutely beautiful park that's very much needed in that area. So thank you. That's my question.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, thank you. Then can I have a mover for this? Councilor Bauer? All in favor, please vote. Thank you. So we're moving on now to our presentations. 6.1 is regarding the street naming bylaw and the civic addressing bylaw and commemorative naming of municipal parks and building policy updates.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Kristen Wong. I'm a planner in planning development.
Can't hear you.
All good. Nice and loud. Today I will be presenting proposed updates to the street naming bylaw, addressing bylaw, and commemorative naming policy. The requirement for the updates to the street naming bylaw and commemorative naming of municipal parks and building policy comes from the 2022 to 2026 Strategic Plan Action 26. A three-phase approach was developed. Phase 1, background research and street naming options, was completed and presented during the October 10th, 2023 GGC meeting. Phase 2, street naming options consultation, was completed in late 2023 with the survey posted on IMO. Today, I'm going to present the results from Phase 3, recommended street naming option and bylaw amendments. Additionally, I will seek Council's endorsement for the recommended street naming option, approval of the revised bylaws, and adoption of the policy. The 5 street naming options presented at the 2023 GGC meeting and released for consultation were: 1. Status quo. To keep the existing street naming convention the same as it has been since it was introduced in 1958 to preserve the historical link to the town's involvement with the Second World War. This option continues the process of using the approved street names from the street name reserve list, which includes names of those who served on the HMS Ajax, HMS Exeter, HMS Achilles, and 8th HMS Ajax. Option 2. Expand street naming to include Canadian World War II veterans from Ajax. Option 3. Expand street naming to include Indigenous names and Indigenous names of cultural significance relating to Ajax. Option 4. Hybrid ceremonial street naming. To continue with the existing street naming practice, it includes ceremonial names as a secondary sign. This secondary name signifies a particular person or area of importance but does not legally change the name of the existing street. And option 5. Hybrid commemorative naming. This option continues the existing naming convention while expanding the commemorative naming of municipal parks and building policy beyond buildings and parks to other municipal assets. These can include different assets like sports fields, bridges, or different areas or rooms within a municipal building. Following the GGC meeting, the street naming survey was made available from November 6th to December 15th for residents and stakeholders to provide their feedback on IMO. The survey had 16 questions asking about the level of support for the town's current street naming convention, opinions on the 5 proposed street naming options, and provided an opportunity for feedback on other street naming ideas. The survey received a high level of engagement with 602 responses. Consultation with internal departments were also completed to identify issues with the current street naming and addressing bylaws. Residents were asked to rank options 1 to 5 on a scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree. Overall feedback shows strong support for option 1, preserving the historical street naming process in Ajax. More than 50% of respondents indicated that it was very important to maintain the existing street naming convention. Diving into these results further, 97 of the 264 respondents explicitly stated that they would like the existing street naming convention to remain the same. Many identified that the list of street names was not depleted, so it should not be changed. And 58 of the 97 expressed that the naming convention was a part of Ajax's history. Respondents most agreed with option 1, status quo. The next preferred options in order were option 2, Canadian War Veterans, option 5, hybrid commemorative naming, option 3, Indigenous and culturally significant names, and concluding with option 4, hybrid ceremonial naming. Residents were also asked to rank the different categories of names on a scale of not important to very important. Overall feedback shows that all category of names to survey takers were ranked as somewhat important to important. Current street names was ranked the most important. This was followed by historical names, Indigenous names, flora fauna names, Ajax community member group name, and finally cultural names. Residents were also given an opportunity in the survey to provide additional feedback to propose another street naming option or to share any comments. Some new ideas that emerged from the survey include using numerical street names, names honoring women, and neutral names. A few concerns were also raised by respondents. These included the potential eradication of Ajax's history if there's a change in the street naming convention, the challenges with Indigenous ceremonial names relating to pronunciation and difficulty to locate, concerns with the project's financial impact due to potential costs to taxpayer when changing signs, and recommended focusing on other issues within the town. Some respondents were against naming streets after people due to potential issues and future controversies. Some comments made on the implementation process included: one respondent highlighted that if cultural Indigenous names are chosen, they need to be connected with the town and thoroughly researched. Another respondent highlighted the importance of Indigenous communities to the town's history. After completing the background research and public consultation, staff recommend implementing option 5, hybrid commemorative naming. This option allows the town to maintain the current existing street naming convention of naming streets after those who served on the Battle of the River Plate and 8th HMS Ajax, which was strongly supported through survey results. Additionally, following community support for the recognition of Sum 41 on Falby Court, staff also recommend allowing for ceremonial naming when directed by council. This option also allows important elements identified by survey takers to be implemented into the commemorative naming policy. This allows the commemorative naming policy to be expanded to include a broader range of municipal assets, structures, and rooms within buildings such as sports fields, outdoor structures, and playgrounds. It also expands the naming criteria to explicitly allow the naming after Indigenous and Canadian War veterans, demonstrating the town's support. Option 5 allows staff to address 2 strategic action plans for updating both the street naming bylaw and commemorative naming policy. The specific changes proposed to the street naming bylaw include adding a process for naming private roads, updating the street naming criteria to include the names of personnel from other ships involved in the Battle of the River Plate, clarifying the language on the process for a street name change when directed by council. This involves holding an open house for the affected residents, preparing a report advising council of the results of the open house, and council determining if a new street name is to be signed, as well as notification requirements, adding a section to allow for ceremonial naming, adding and defining new street suffixes such as boulevard, circle, and more, and making housekeeping updates. Changes to the civic addressing bylaw include adding a definition and addressing process for accessory dwelling units, clarifying the addressing procedure for private roads, including the ability to address secondary driveway access point for farms and municipal assets like parking lots, stormwater ponds, and parks, introducing a process for addressing vacant properties, and making housekeeping updates. Finally, updates to the commemorative naming policy include updating the policy name to commemorative naming of municipal parks, buildings, and assets policy to reflect the expanded scope of commemorative naming, expanding the naming criteria to explicitly include Indigenous names of cultural significance and Canadian World War veterans born in Ajax, residing in Ajax, or were previously residents, expanding naming beyond parks and buildings to include structures, municipal assets, and rooms or areas within municipal buildings. These can include recreation facilities, bridges, or sports fields, to name a few. Expanding the commemorative naming of Municipal Parkland and Building Naming Committee to include the Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator, Grants and Strategic Initiatives Coordinator, and Archive Services Librarian, and requiring nominators to provide written submissions to the committee Upon review by the committee, the nominator and council will be notified through email if the submission was not recommended. If recommended, the name would be presented to council for consideration. Staff recommend that council endorse option 5, hybrid commemorative naming, that the updated street naming bylaw and civic addressing bylaw included as attachments 2 and 3 be forwarded to council for approval, and that the updated commemorative naming of municipal parks, buildings, and assets policy included as attachment 4 be adopted by council. This concludes the presentation. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions. Question?
I do. Thank you, Chair. So thanks for this report. This is a long time coming. I think we were debating this almost 5-6 years ago. So glad to see kind of a consensus. So I have a few questions first on the compilation of data. So I haven't been on IMO in a while, so please refresh my memory. How are we sure that the 600 plus feedback that we got wasn't from 20 individuals? Are they all independently verified?
Yep, so through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee, one of the first questions on the survey asked what ward the survey respondents were in, or if they were a business owner in Ajax, or if they worked in Ajax. So we had parameters that identified which wards they came from.
But there's nothing stopping me from logging on 500 times and just putting different answers, correct? You're not verifying the individual responses to ensure that they come from real people.
We also asked residents or survey takers to provide their postal code, the first 3 letters of their postal code.
Okay, I think my point stands ultimately. I think there's some, when compiling data, like we have to make sure they're coming from independent residents, and Ajax uses, I think, 5-6 first 3 letters postcode. I can make up any other information. So we have no way of verifying if it was actually 600 people who responded. And again, I'm not trying to question the data, but just the process of accumulating data is important when saying, so-and-so believes this. There's the comment that, people want to embrace Ajax history, and I absolutely understand that, and I absolutely agree with that. But I guess one comment I'd make is that, the history of this land goes beyond 1955 when we were incorporated as a town or a municipality. I think, that's why we do a land acknowledgement before every committee meeting and every meeting. That's why the terms truth and reconciliation exist, is we're trying to reconcile between the present and what happened before. So, that's a point. So on Indigenous consultation, in the report 2.3.2, page 9, through this project, I'm quoting, through this project, staff reached out to the Mississauga of Scugog Island First Nations to determine the level of interest their community may have in exploring other naming opportunities. What happened when we reached out to them? It doesn't actually say here that it states what the goal was, but I assume we reached out to the Mississauga of Scugog Island. What did they say? Did they say they were interested? Did they say this is good, bad?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee, yep, so we reached out to them, and while we haven't received a response, if we were to use Indigenous names for the commemorative naming policy, research and consultation with Indigenous people would be required.
But I guess ultimately we had reached out to the Mississauga Scugog Island. They didn't actually return our messages per se, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's good to know. Again, the war effort, while admirable, there were some policies in place that discouraged racialized people from enlisting in the war effort, whether it's discriminatory, racist, whatever. And so it's just like, I understand acknowledging the sailors of these 3 ships, but, and I said this 6 years ago, and I still believe it now, I do believe there should absolutely be an Indigenous component to our street naming policy. That's why I'm questioning the data. I'm questioning whether it's actually 600 people that came through, because that's not an inconsequential amount. But it could also be 5 motivated individuals skewing, data to influence our decision making. I get there's kind of a conciliatory thing where we can name buildings or parks, and I guess that is a first step. But, I think we're also passing, a building naming, our an ability to name, people can buy, naming rights to our buildings, which would then, I assume, trump parks and whatever. So I think I would personally like to see an additional component as well as soldiers. I don't think that removes from the history of Ajax at all. I think it is just a name of a street for a lot of people. Would love to hear from my council colleagues. Some of you have been here your whole lives and have a different point of view, but as, you know, the racialized member on council who understands, you know, the different nuances that led to where we are now, I think it is important that we not only say the words truth and reconciliation every meeting, but start putting our money where our mouth is. And this one is a really small ask. I don't think it changes the town in any way. And I think, as with anything, people will just adapt to it because that is what our residents do. They adapt. You know, we did rename 1 or 2 streets, and I look at Councillor Barrow. I don't think anyone has said anything to you regarding that recently. Renaming Langsdorff, whatever, like, it's fine. People will just adapt. No one really gets mail anyways. Okay, I've used up my time. I'd love to hear from my council colleagues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Collier, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach because I'm, no disrespect intended, but this is a solution looking for a problem, in my opinion. I think clearly the data that we got back, and I'm not going to go down the conspiracy theory road about skewing the data, clearly shows status quo option 1 is the intended, what people wanted, which I could have told you before we even went to IMO or anything else. Which is why I'm surprised to see option 5. Just, my question is coming. So on slide, looks like 9, the recommended street naming option, option 5, paragraph 1, it says includes the ability to ceremonial name when directed by council, like for instance, Sum 41 on Falby. We did that anyway. Is there any restriction stopping us from doing that, a ceremonial naming, if we want to? We've done it.
Through the chair to,
Outside this policy, if we do not amend the policy we have already.
currently in the bylaw, we did not include a section for ceremonial naming for Sum 41. But we've
we did it.
proposed to amend it because of what the community support we had for Sum 41 on Falby Court. We decided to add a section in the street naming bylaw to include for secondary names.
Okay. My point, there is no planning police. Like, we did it. Nobody came and said, oh my God, you can't do that. Take it down. I don't know that we need to amend our policy or bylaw to do it because we've clearly proven that we can't do it. You talk about a number of other things, and my colleague has spoken about the Indigenous naming. Can you give me an example of one?
So, through the chair to the mayor, the Indigenous names would only be for, not for street naming, it would be for the commemorative naming policy. So anything that's relating to Indigenous, their culture, can be used to commemoratively name an asset, a building. There's many examples in Vancouver.
Okay, so respectfully, that was my question. I was just wondering if there was a local resident or a person, a significant name I couldn't think of off the top of my head. We don't have anybody specifically in mind right now for this.
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm glad you clarified that because it says the current commemorative naming policy provides a process for the official naming of buildings and parks, and you kind of went off. I'm not understanding why the street naming policy has to even reference buildings, parks, naming rights of any other thing at this point. Why is this not dealing just strictly with the street naming?
Through the chair to the mayor. So our option 5 touches on 2 things, you're correct. So the street naming option, we're making it the same to name streets after those of the Battle of the River Plate. What we took from the street naming survey, from what survey takers identified to be important, which is Indigenous as well as Canadian War veterans, we took those pieces and saw it as an opportunity to expand our commemorative naming policy.
Okay, but again, it's not to do with the roads.
Correct.
But I don't want to complicate things. I don't want to blur the lines. This is to do with the roads, something I feel very strongly about with the history, as do a number of people, and clearly by the results here. I don't want to, I'd rather just keep this just the street naming policy, not add a bunch of other stuff to it. Is that possible?
I'll respond on behalf of Kristen through the chair to Mayor Collier. First to one of your earlier questions, we are requiring housekeeping updates to the street naming bylaw anyway, so we saw the opportunity to include the commemorative naming so that it is part of the bylaw and there as a process. In terms of, possibly if you can please repeat your question.
I would like to just maintain a standalone street naming policy. I don't want to combine this with, naming community center through.
Correct. So
not
they
really.
are, yeah, they are separate. It is a street naming bylaw on its own, and then there is a corporate policy for commemorative naming of parks and other town assets. They are separate documents.
Okay. Well, that's not what I'm getting, so I'm glad that you've clarified that, because what I'm seeing is we've taken option 1, status quo, option 2, war veterans, which both rated well above the 0-0 line, and now we're trying to kind of add in options 3, 4, and 5, which were well below, almost to the same amount as the others were above, for instance. Like 0.5 above was war veterans, and 0.5 below was hybrid commemorative naming. So since these didn't have support, and since I'll ask the question, what's the point of doing an IMO survey or any type of survey if we're going to ignore the data, which kind of we are, by people saying these aren't important and putting them into a hybrid, we're kind of ignoring the data.
We actually are implementing the data. The first option 1, which is the status quo, is what was the most popular in terms of street naming. The IMO page and survey was strictly scoped to the street naming. So we are keeping status quo for the street naming bylaw, but the strategic plan item spoke to the street naming bylaw and the commemorative naming policy. So we took the popular aspects from the survey for street naming and took those popular supported aspects and built them into the commemorative naming policy.
Okay. Last question. Is it possible to still do the housekeeping changes in whichever that you want to do and maintain option 1? You can still do both, right? We have the street naming policy, status quo stays the same, and you can still make these housekeeping changes to the others about commemorative streets and whichever. Yes?
So the housekeeping, there was some housekeeping also to the street naming bylaw. Perhaps I don't think I understand your question fully.
Okay. You're suggesting the staff report is recommending option 5, the hybrid. What I'm saying is we leave it at option 1. Does that stop you from making these housekeeping changes to the other sections that you need to do to allow, for instance, a commemorative naming if we want to do it?
No, it does not. And the option 5, I know it is confusing. We did select option 5 because it includes option 1, which is the street naming, which was the popular. So we applied that to the street naming bylaw. And the other aspect of option 5, we applied to the commemorative naming policy because the strategic plan item requested staff to look at both.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all my questions, Chair. I will have an amendment when this is on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henry?
Thank you. I'd like to go to page 8 of the presentation where it says street naming consultation results and considerations. Is that able to be put up on the board? Up on the monitor? Thank you. When we look at challenges with Indigenous ceremonial name pronunciations, is this a comment back from the actual persons that answered?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry. Yep, so,
So these are not our staff comments?
No.
These are from residents who answered?
yes, these are from the survey results.
Okay, because I find that particularly offensive. Challenges, I want everyone to think about what my colleague Councillor Lee said. Challenges with Indigenous ceremonial name pronunciations. That is highly offensive. When do we expect to have input back from the Indigenous community?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, we reached out. We haven't received a response back, but if you would like further conversation, we could do so.
Yeah, for me personally, I don't think we should be making this decision today. I think this should be deferred, and we should wait until we have proper consultation with the Indigenous community before we move forward with this decision. When I look at the feedback you gave me today, and I want to thank you for that prior to the meeting, where I asked for a breakdown by ward of which ward voted, because you said which ward voted the most, but not with which numbers. And we have Ward 3 at 336, Ward 2 at 82, and Ward 1 at 144, equaling 562, where we have businesses at 7 votes, people that work in Ajax at 9 votes, and none of the above category in 24 votes. When I listened to what my colleague Councillor Lee said, Regional Councillor Lee, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but he is correct. There's a way to skew this. And I know that I reached out personally to many persons in the community, diverse leaders, let them know about the survey. They sent it out to many different groups. I was expecting a higher feedback count than what we received, but to his point, asking how the information was collected and received, and this is nothing saying about the report. You've done a great job with the report. The team has done a great job with the report, but it's the way the information was received, and it could have been skewed. I do have concerns, and I'm in conflict because I am the granddaughter of war vets, granddaughter and great-granddaughter. I totally respect the policy that we have in place, and I understand how the town was built and the name, but I also think there is room for Indigenous consultation and naming rights. So if you were to ask me this today, I'd say I think this should be deferred until we have full consultation with the Indigenous community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Chair Dyes. Thank you, Ms. Wong, for coming today and the presentation and the work that's gone into this. I appreciate it. So I fully support Regional Councillor Lee's comments and Councillor Henry's comments. We're missing some important information to make this decision. However, I wanted to clarify because after the mayor's questions, I got a little bit confused myself. So there is a street naming bylaw, and there is also a commemorative naming. You're calling it policy, but it would also be, is it considered also a bylaw?
It's through the chair to Councillor, it's a policy.
Okay, so what, maybe I need to ask that question, what is the difference?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, a bylaw is legally enforced. A policy provides more of a guidance and recommendation piece.
Okay, and that is, Mayor Collier made the comment that we were able to name Falby Court, temporarily rename it to Sum 41, and that would be a commemorative choice that we made without this policy in place?
Through the chair to Councillor, yes, but because of what happened and the success with Falby Court, we decided to add ceremonial naming to the street naming bylaw for it to be allowed through council decision.
I absolutely 100% agree with that and think that's an excellent idea. Even though we've done it and it wasn't in writing, this is just one council. I think it's very important to have that in writing so that we have something to fall back on if there are times in the future where it's not the 7 of us. I did want to ask procedurally, there was comments in the report about updating a nomination process. So can you walk us through what currently exists and what do you expect, or what are you anticipating to be the changes? And there's a second part to that question and I forgot it. So answer, if you could provide us that info first, please. What's the whole nomination process?
Yep. Through the chair to Councillor Bauer. So the nomination process from our old policy and our current policy is relatively the same. We have nominators, and in our new policy, we specifically stated who a nominator would be, whether that be the public, businesses, advisory groups, staff, even elected officials. They can bring a nomination to the committee. The committee is chaired by the Manager of Environmental Services, and through that committee, they go through the research process as well as the public consultation process, and they bring forth a recommendation to council to make that decision if they would like to commemoratively name the asset or building. We've updated it so that nominators are now notified if they were recommended or not. So they will be notified through email.
Okay, and that's, nomination process is just for the commemorative and ceremonial naming?
Yes.
Where the street naming bylaw is the list of veterans and we pick a name?
Yes, so the street naming bylaw, there are no changes. We still have the street name reserve list, which includes 150 names in our bucket.
Okay, so, and then how would I know we've got the explicit Canadian War veterans and Indigenous names of cultural significance, and I think members of the Ajax community who've had impact on the town. How do those names get added? Or is that just like, I guess, is that a nomination process, or would you know the veterans and they get added to that River Plate list?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer. The Canadian War veterans and the Indigenous, those are outlined as different naming criterias in the commemorative naming policy.
Okay.
So a naming criteria could be those two. It could be somebody who substantially contributed to the town in terms of their service. It could relate to the environment. So that's just a list of criteria of a commemorative name.
Okay. And again, that's not for streets.
No.
That's for commemorative
Yes.
facilities, et cetera. Okay. Thank you for that. And then I just had a question about there was the other policy about numbering. Oh, no. That is not part of this presentation. I can wait until the report. Thank you very much. No more questions.
Thank you. Mayor Collier.
Actually, Chair, I have an amendment if this is on the floor.
Okay.
I don't mind moving, actually, to get it on the floor. My amendment is very simply changing recommendation 1. There it is. From the preferred street naming option 5, hybrid commemorative, be changed to the preferred street naming option 1, status quo, with minor amendments as noted in section 2.31 of the report be endorsed by council. And I'd like to speak to it, please. And I appreciate the debate, and I think it's always healthy, but as I said, this is kind of a problem looking for a solution. Nobody was complaining about the street naming policy. The tabulated results, the IMO information clearly says what residents want. I'm not going to question the accuracy. I'm going to trust that we didn't have somebody hijack our system and submit 600, opinions that way. I mean, that's the whole point of asking for the feedback, is we need to use it. We can't decide that it's been skewed and we're not going to use it. I really don't want to see the waters muddied between our street naming and the naming of parks, which I think is coming out next year. I'm looking at Director McClarty for that. We have these other things in process right now that are coming. The street naming is completely separate. And let's be honest, Ajax is nearly at grow-out. We only have a handful of streets left. We have no? How many streets do you have left, Jeff?
If we could imagine, Mr. Mayor, the Rio Can Durham Center being all redeveloped, we could have 50 or 60 new streets in that area.
I think we have that many names left on the list.
We have 150 on the list. I think that's what Kristen
Correct.
mentioned, yes.
So, I mean, just one sec. we already have these others in process. I mean, it just, to me, it seems like we're making a lot about something that really isn't that important in the big picture of things. This has been ongoing for, how long has Ajax been incorporated? We're in our 70th anniversary. And really, things have been going well. The people want the status quo, and my motion is just keeping the status quo. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Ms. McClarty?
I just want to clarify that this report actually speaks to the two policies. So the one is the street naming and the street naming bylaw, and the second piece is what you were just referring to, Mayor Collier, which is the updated commemorative naming in municipal parks, buildings, and asset policy. So we did both in this report, and that might be adding to the confusion. So you really do need to think of it as two separate pieces that we join together in order to kind of like make sure that we were dotting all of our I's and crossing our T's in terms of like even the commemorative piece and what we did with 741. We made that decision outside of council, and I think that any future decisions associated with that should be made by council, and that's why we updated the policies the way that we did. And we also updated the nomination piece, as you can see, as part of the corporate policy.
You may.
Thank you. And I appreciate the clarification, but I don't think that the amendment takes away from that. It still allows the other, you're nodding, it still allows the other things to all go ahead. It just takes away sort of the tying of the street naming. Is that correct? Like, we're not, by me making this amendment, it's not taking away from all of the other things that you have in the report.
I'd have to refer to my colleague, the author of the report here. Can you please confirm if the actual policy speaks to the commemorative part or if it's only in the bylaw?
Well, item 4, updated commemorative naming of municipal parks, buildings, and assets.
Ms.
as
Wong?
included, be adopted.
Sorry, could you clarify your question?
I'm just saying, the amendment that I propose, just changing option 5, hybrid commemorative, to option 1, status quo, doesn't take away from items 2, 3, and 4, which is, I think, the mechanisms that Ms. McClarty was referring to about the commemorative naming of parks, buildings, and assets, the update civic address bylaw, the updated street naming bylaw, of which those are still active. I'm just changing the option. So I'm just saying this amendment doesn't take away from what you tried to tie in with the rest of the report. Question mark.
Thank you. I'll answer on behalf of Kristen through the chair to Mayor Collier. It does not. The street naming bylaw implements option 1, so changing that language does not affect the street naming bylaw, and it does keep the civic addressing and commemorative naming policy and those other
And
recommendations.
if council ever decides to do another commemorative street naming, we can do it just like we did this time and just do it through motion.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So, thank you.
Councillor Rob Tyler Moran, you have a question?
Yes, can you hear me? So, Mayor Collier just answered my question, because my question was if we didn't receive this report or in regards to the amendment, and if we vote on this amendment and in a year from now we want to name a street Diwali Avenue, or if we want to name a street after an Indigenous person, we can still do that? That's a question.
Through the chair to Councillor Tyler Moran, our street naming bylaw states that all streets are to be named after those who served on the Battle of the River Plate.
Right, but this 741, I don't know if you can see the sign behind me, but that was an example, but that's commemorative. Are we able to, oh, okay, I think it was.
So the commemorative
Director
naming, we added in a section to allow for ceremonial naming through council decision.
Right. So if there was a new street in the Rio Can Plaza, by the way, that was just an example, nobody's saying that's happening, but anywhere in Ajax, and we wanted to name it after an Indigenous person, only commemoratively we could do that, not officially. Is that kind of, is that correct?
Just to clarify, like are you referring to the actual street, or are you street name, or are you referring to the secondary street name?
No, I'm referring to the amendment that's on the floor, and if we went with option one, which is basically status quo, and we wanted to name a street after an Indigenous person, could we still do that? If there was a motion from council saying, oh, by the way, we want to name that particular street, would you be able to do that? Would we be able to do that, I should say?
Mr. Romanowski.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Tyler, yes. If council decided that's the way that they wanted to proceed, then they would do that as any type of name outside of the parameters of the bylaw. Yes, council could do that if they so choose.
So I'll just double check one more time. So if it became 42, I'm trying to think of a name, an Indigenous name without being, whatever that name would be, that we would be able to do that. Okay, I think you just answered my question. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Regional Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Chair. The reason I bring up IMO data is because we've done IMOs before where we ask, a neighborhood whether they are in favor of a development. And when it comes resoundingly no, we don't say to ourselves, well, the IMO has spoken. There's some latitude in the IMO in how we interpret the data, right? I think back in the day, back in 18, we went against the IMO when it said that most people didn't support cannabis stores. And we did it, and the walls of Jericho did not fall. I think, we are also elected officials who represent our constituencies. And, being of a very racialized constituency, this naming policy does not, it is very segmented in who we choose to acknowledge and how, right? And I think we need to just be open to going beyond that. Like I said, if we have 2 or 3 streets that are named after, an Indigenous, through consultations with Indigenous, recognition, I don't think that tarnishes the town. We still call it Pickering Village. We didn't change it to Ajax Village because we're flexible in names until we all of a sudden choose not to be. So I just think I would not support this amendment. I do, listen, if the Mississauga Scugog Islands didn't get back to us, then that is disappointing because I really think we really could have used some insight on this from their lens. But in lieu of that, I would support hybrid option 5 and not be so rigid in the way we approach history. It was a naming, that's how we named our town, was through a contest, if I'm not mistaken. And so there's some flexibility in this. Otherwise, hey, the word Ajax goes back to Homer's Iliad. We should open up to any names mentioned in the Iliad. We're talking about history. So it's just we don't get to just pick and choose when history applies, when history doesn't apply, when the IMO applies, when it doesn't apply. It is always fluid. And there's some, judgment from the councillors as to when, what we think is best. So anyways, we fought again. This is a 6-year fight, and I am looking forward to it being over and done with. So I would not support the amendment. I would begrudgingly support option 5. I agree with Councillor Henry. I still think we should, engage in consultations. I don't think it would cost a lot to wait for a response back from the Mississaugas of Scugog, so there's no cost element to it. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Ms. McMlarty's before you.
Through the chair, I have another clarification. If council decides to remove the ceremonial piece from the bylaw, I would recommend that you include it in you direct staff to include that in the corporate bylaw or the corporate policy so that we have some sort of direction and process to the naming of those ceremonial roads that we want to do. As per the last example, we made that decision internally, and I don't think that should continue. It should be a council decision.
Mr. Romanowski?
And through the chair, and just to some of the comments that Councillor Lee made, I wouldn't say that not getting responses back from the Massasaugas of Scugog Island is an issue in this case, especially when we're determining how we're going to name the streets or what the process is. Really, they wouldn't have anything to provide feedback on because we didn't provide them with any names for consideration. But I think that if we were to name, whether it was a council bring forward to name a street after Indigenous, an Indigenous name, or whether it was for a building, structure, room, etc., as per under the commemorative, that's when we would engage the Indigenous group to get feedback. So I don't know what feedback we would have necessarily received through this particular process, other than we're open to hearing any suggestions that the town has moving forward under the bylaw or policy. So that's all I have to add to that.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you. I had something else to say, but I will ask Director Romanowski. When we did this type of consultation with the Indigenous community, we asked what exactly of them. We said we are looking at our policy and we are asking if you have any feedback, correct?
We probably, and I can let Kristen speak to this, but I'm sure they would have answered all the same questions in the survey that everybody else would have been, have had access to. We may have circulated to them separately, but I'm imagining the questions would have been along the same lines.
I'd like to know that answer, please.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Henry. We reached out to the Mississauga of Scuba Island First Nations through email, and we asked them if they were interested in having a conversation with us to compile a list of local approved Indigenous names that have a history in the town of Ajax. And I just want to clarify that these Indigenous names would be applied to the commemorative naming policy. And the street naming piece, we're maintaining the same, and we're proposing to name streets as we do after the Battle of the River Plate. So
I get that.
Yeah.
I just want to know what was specifically said to them. So you're saying we asked them for consultation, we told them what we were doing, and we have not heard back. And when was that sent?
a couple months ago.
So, okay, that's... It is in the report.
Just finish your question.
On the amendment, okay. So with that said, I have to strongly say that I would not be doing my ward a service. I've heard strongly from them what they want, and I really feel that waiting for that piece is not gonna hurt the policy in any way if we wait an extra month or two for some more consultation on that. I can't vote in favor of this, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Councillor Bauer, you have a question on the amendment?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted, so I think the mayor is asking to change from option 5 to option 1 to remain the status quo. And part of the logic, I believe, Mayor Collier, is we can do it anyway, or we've already done it where we pick things. So we don't really need to put it in writing this way. So just not that long ago, a few months ago, you and I put forth a motion to amend the procedural bylaw to include the formality of timing and also the formality of consulting with ward councillors when there is an issue involving their ward. At that time, it was also discussed that we already do that, so it's fine. We don't need to have it in writing. But we decided it was important to have it because we're not always the council of the day, and because things need to be we need to make things clear so that we don't need to be worrying about the vagueness of things. So I don't support your amendment because, option 5 is the written clarification that we're staying status quo, and we are also adding this part about commemoration and how those names will come up in the process, etc. So I get what you're saying, and I respect that, but I think we already addressed this once before in that procedural bylaw change where we were doing it anyway, but we put it in writing. So I think this is a similar example where we're doing it anyway, let's put it in writing. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Crawford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that while the Mississauga Scugog Nation did not respond, I think that we have a responsibility. We said when when we found the children, we had the big ceremony that we would do everything that we could do possible to be able to honor them. And one of the things I believe it was Councillor Bauer said that even by naming streets. And I think that it's an important piece that I don't think we should take away from our current way of naming streets because of the history we have. But the commemorative piece of it is very, very important, that we stay with what we said we were going to do, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, when those horrific graves were found. So I feel like that's a really small piece of what we can do to keep our word. And I think we continue to reach out to them, and I love the idea of them creating the list of names that we could possibly use in whatever it is, park namings or whatever the thing that we're doing. So I don't know if I'm actually saying what I'm supposed to be saying, except that I just want to make sure that with this amendment that we're not losing any piece of what we had given our word to do a number of years ago when we did our land acknowledgement, and we said that we would do whatever we could do to continue to honor that. And I believe we have in many cases, but this is another step that we can continue to honor.
Mayor Collier.
Oh, you got it. Thank you, and thank you everyone for your comments. I think it's a good debate. I think we've looked at a lot of things. I just feel that we've confused a couple of things, so I just want to add a little bit of clarification. Because, originally Councillor Crawford, just from something you just said, I don't believe the amendment, and I'd ask Ms. McClarty this question, takes away from any of those other things. And the answer I think we got was no, it doesn't. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If you look at the other 3 bullets in the recommendations, I'm talking specifically to the street naming. Okay, that the preferred street naming option, option 5, changing to option 1, status quo, with minor amendments as noted in section 2.3.1 of this report be endorsed by council. Okay, if you go back down, it still leaves 2, 3, and 4 in there, which speaks to the commemorative and the updating the civic address bylaw and the other things. If you go down to option 5, did I pass it? And read it, it says, somebody tell me what page it's on. I skipped over it. 200 of the agenda. Jeez, I went way past it. There it is. Sorry.
What page?
This option proposes to maintain the existing street naming convention, status quo, which it does anyway, and update the town's commemorative naming policy to name other municipal assets, which it does anyway. Those parts are still in number 2, 3, and 4. I'm just clarifying, because I don't like this hybrid format, that it's option 1, that it's the status quo. I just found that confusing. I don't think it takes away from anything else that this is trying to do. So I want to make that clarification, because it sounds like that's, I don't want to say confusing, misleading maybe, which I don't think it is. I think it's just doing exactly what it says, the status quo with the minor amendments as noted, which is updating the commemorative, which is allowing all those things that we already do. So I just want to offer that as clarification.
Councillor Henry, do you have a comment on the amendment?
So, thank you, I do. So I've waited since 2022 when I was elected to address this because this is something my residents brought to me. And now from what I'm reading, we would be keeping the status quo as not allowing other names to come in except from what we currently have. So there's no change. But my ward wants change. They want to have inclusion. And we are missing that Indigenous consultation piece, that we are making decisions at this council, in my opinion, with someone who has wrote in and said very negatively challenges with Indigenous ceremonial name pronunciations. This is the person that is guiding us, this council, in making these decisions. I can't accept that. So for me, knowing what my ward wants from me, knowing what they're expecting, I can't move past that piece that I want to see before we go forward. Because although we could name other properties, yes, we could, but we're precluding the opportunity to name streets because somehow it's not good enough. And that doesn't leave me with a good feeling. And that's not directed at you, Mayor. That's not. I understand your position, and it's a good position. I understand it. But it doesn't feel right to me. So for me, I can't move forward with that. Thank you.
One more time to clarify the difference, if there is one.
I will provide clarification through the chair to Councillor Henry. The street naming bylaw does not preclude the ability of someone to bring forward a different name, whether it's an Indigenous name or a name of a community member, and recommend that a street be named after them. That item would come to council, and it would be council's decision to direct staff to not use a name from the street reserve list and to use the recommended name instead. So there is something in the street naming bylaw that allows for that to happen.
Go ahead.
Not long ago, we had a development come before us that wanted an Indigenous name, that was told, no, that's not part of our street naming policy, and we're in the middle of a review. So right away, the hand went up that was a barrier. And respectfully, yes, we were in the process, but I can see without us allowing a little wiggle room in there, and it could be this council, it could be the following council, that hand comes up again. And it's not directed at staff. You've done a really hard job here. I get that. Like you've really put a lot of time and effort into this, and I understand that. And my comments about the comments on the screen that were given is not directed at staff in any way. You put that in there because that's what you received, and I'm sorry you received that, because you should have never received that type of comment, in my opinion. But my point is, without, as Councillor Bauer said, without things in writing, that barrier comes up immediately and can be used to say, no, we have a policy and we're not gonna veer from it. Whereas if we have consultation, if we have a little wiggle room for 2%, 5% to go that way, with names that are not on that list, we have that ability to say, you know what, yeah, that is the street that we're gonna pick, and it'll be an Indigenous name. That's just my point to all that. I hope you understand where I'm coming from.
We do, definitely we do. You are correct. The bylaw as it exists today, not the one we're proposing in the report, did not provide that latitude, which is why we built that latitude into the revised bylaw that's attached to the report.
I need more from I need to see that consultation piece from the Indigenous community. I need to hear from them. I think that they have earned the right to be heard. And if they haven't responded to us, we need to reach out again and say, hey, we want to make sure we hear from you in whatever way that looks like. Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any further questions to the amendment? Okay, then can we please have a vote on the amendment?
To you, Madam Chair, just a point of clarification before you call the vote.
Yes.
As Mayor Collier is the one who moved it and provided the option that we're choosing right now, this would not be an amendment. So we're going to be voting on all 4 of the clauses. And if that fails, we'll be looking for another member of council to move forward another motion today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Understood? The recommendation.
Through you,
This
Madam
is the
Chair.
recommendation going forward.
We do have the recommendations on the screen in front of you, so we'll be asking council to vote on all 4 clauses right now, including option 1 as status quo. And if this fails, we'll be looking for an additional recommendation today from a member of council.
Okay. Everybody clear on that? Thank you. So we'll have a vote, please. we go back to the original recommendation, please?
To you,
Yes.
Madam Chair, I would ask for a motion at this
You
time.
have a question? Okay, thank you. We have Counselor Henry. Can we have the, on screen? All right, so the recommendation that was provided in the report, you could vote on that, please?
No, to you, Madam Chair, I believe Councillor Henry has a motion she'd like to bring forward.
You have a
If you
separate
could-
one. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. What's your motion?
Thank you. I'd like to defer this report until September, until when we've had an opportunity to have further consultation with the Indigenous community. Would you agree with that? With 5A? We try.
Are there any comments? Regional Councillor Lee.
What happens if they don't respond again? So I just to Councillor Henry, if they don't respond, would you be okay with 5 in September? Or, because again, there's no guarantee we can't obviously force the Mississaugas to Cook Island. You'd generally be okay with 5. So,
If there's no response, yes, I'd like to give that opportunity.
sure. Okay, thank you. I'm okay with that.
Or Mayor Collier, you had a comment?
Thank you, Chair. With the other items that are kind of attached to this being the other naming policies of buildings, parks, whatever else, does this being deferred in any way affect those, kicking this down the field another 4 months?
Through the chair to Mayor Collier. If the street naming bylaw is the only item in question, maybe we hold the street naming bylaw and we can hold the corporate commemorative naming policy as well, in case there is an opportunity to move some items from one to the other. But if we could consider the civic addressing bylaw, so we could have that
But
in
the
place.
referral motion's on the floor for all of them, Ms. Anders. So I'm asking, does this affect other things by putting this on hold for 4 months?
Oh, in terms of staff resources?
As far as other processes moving forward, other policies, other things, other that are in progress?
Yes, there would be, like Kristen's resources would be allocated to following up with the Mississaugas of Scugog, potentially writing another report for September. So that would take away some of her ability to work on the official
but it's
plan
not-
review.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do we reach out to anybody else that doesn't get back to us when we ask for consultation? Are we making a special re-ask here? Like, has this ever been done before? Because I see a precedent that I don't like.
Yeah, we do generally follow up before we finalize our reports.
So did you follow up in this case with them the first time? And say, we reached out to you and we haven't got a response? Do you care to provide a response?
I would have to check to see. The Mississaugas of Scugog don't have a lot of resources, so this may not be something that they would respond to even if we do follow up.
I think I disagree with that. I think this would be an important one that they would consider, having street names after prominent Indigenous people. I would think that would get their attention, personally. I can't speak for them, but I would think that would make me respond. Okay, but we haven't done this before, and this is not going to become a new policy where we're going to say, are you sure, are you really sure, to other people we reach out for consultation with in the future? No?
With consultation, we do follow up generally before we write the report, and if there is no response, we don't generally hold up reports for months on end to hear from people.
Just to speak to it quickly, we've had pretty much an hour debate on this. I think it's been good. I think this has been many months, if not over a year, in process. We don't have a problem right now. Things are good. I'm not going to support deferring this. I think this decision is going to be the same in September as it is today, and I think the facts are going to be the same in September as they are today. So I'm not going to support the deferral. Thank you.
Regional Councilor Crawford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you just tell me how many times we've reached out to them and when did we start this process?
Through the chair to Regional Councilor Crawford, we started the street naming update, I believe, in 2023, and we reached out a few months ago to the Mississauga of Scugog Island First Nations.
And I'm assuming we followed up.
We haven't heard a response yet. We did not follow up with them.
Okay. I don't think that they view this as unimportant. I think that they've probably been swamped with multiple requests from different municipalities. I know the Bus Rapid Transit has also been reaching out with them also. So I think that it's less about importance as much as it is volume of requests and lack of resources to be able to address them in a timely fashion. I'm not sure that, I don't know if the outcome will be will be favorable by delaying it, although I don't see any reason why we couldn't give them a little bit of extra time with the hopes that they would actually be able to respond to it. But I don't see this as their lack of response being one that they don't view as being important. So I think I would support it.
Anything further on the deferral? So can I call the vote, please, then? Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Chair Dyes. I just want to clarify with Councillor Henry. You're asking for deferral until the next, could we ask for deferral till the next GGC meeting? Yes. That gives staff enough time to reach out between now and then? Yeah, okay. So it's a friendly. Could we please amend that we wait? That gives Ms. Wong opportunity between now and the June GGC to reach out one more time, and I think that would be sufficient, that we didn't get an answer the first time, so we're asking again, and then we can't control what happens then. And then we've had the opportunity to satisfy some of the concerns regarding consultation with the Indigenous community. Thank you, Councillor Henry.
So are we all in favor with that? Okay, call it. You want a friendly? Okay. It's agreed. Thank you very much. Okay. So we're not. I didn't see it come up, sorry. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So we're on to 6.2 on the agenda, please. Recreation programs update. You ready? Sorry? Go ahead. I did.
Now is it working? There we go. Good afternoon, Mayor Collier, members of council, Town of Ajax staff, and community members. My name is Jessica McGarr, and I'm the Recreation Program Supervisor. Today, I have the pleasure of presenting some highlighted successes and sharing the dedication and the hard work that the Recreation Programs team has put forth to our community over the past few years. Recreation Programs, known as the RP team, is responsible for the development and delivery of diverse and inclusive recreation and leisure programs, events, and services for all Ajax residents of all ages. The RP team consists of 7 full-time staff and over 100 part-time staff in our peak seasons. Each portfolio explores new trends in recreation, assesses participation numbers in our current programs, reassesses where adjustments in program delivery is needed, and where it's needed. Each portfolio assists with streamlining services for a high level of customer service and customer satisfaction. RP strives to support and expand the frequency and the duration that residents are active and engaged in their recreational pursuits in order to help them benefit from the many positive health, social, and wellness impacts associated with recreation participation. RP promotes opportunities that focus on providing safe and enjoyable activities for our residents. Our goal is to ensure everyone has the opportunity to participate in the activities of their choice. Registered programs offer a secured spot typically for about a 6 to 12-week commitment, which runs seasonally. Most registered programs are instructor-led, offering skill development, participation in sports, activities, and in a social setting. Drop-in programs offer several low-cost to no-cost options, as well as low commitment, as participants can sign up week to week. These programs are supervised by our RP part-time staff. Both registered and drop-in programs are offered through a combination of direct delivery and through partnerships with third-party organizations and community agencies who provide specialized programming. Programming genres include sports, arts and culture, general interest, school break camps, and inclusion services. We also offer many services to our community, such as our inclusion support, which offers one-to-one assistance to participants with physical and developmental disabilities so they can participate in our programs with supports and adaptations. Lastly, RP puts on many successful annual events throughout the year for our community members. Some include the 55 Plus Seniors Barbecue and Dances, Youth Week, and playground special events. As the town of Ajax's population grows and the demographics evolve, our programs and services must also grow and adapt to meet the needs of our community, and ensuring relevant program options are available to our residents. Over the last few years, we have seen vast changes in our programming structure as the community participation and staffing was greatly impacted by COVID-19. The RP team has worked diligently to re-engage and reestablish community participation, and in most areas, we have rebuilt or surpassed our pre-COVID participation numbers. We are now seeing an influx in recruitment, which has allowed us to deliver our programs and camps at full capacity. Here are some successes to highlight in registered programs in 2024. Children's sports programs had an 83 participant fill rate. Arts, dance, preschool, general interest saw a 78% participant fill rate. Our youth programs are filling and we're accommodating wait lists, which typically in the past, this is a very hard age group to gain commitment from. Older adult programs saw a 92 participant fill rate. And lastly, our summer camps ran at a 90% fill rate. RP also offers drop-in formats, which reduces barriers to recreation through low-cost to no-cost options, as well as low commitment. Some examples of our drop-in programs include the Youth Hub at Ajax High School and youth spaces in all 3 of our community centers. which offers a safe environment for our youth to engage in with one another and also explore their identities in these developing years. These programs have recreational staff on site to not only provide program support, but also be a positive role model. Drop-in sports are also offered for all ages to our residents, and we always see a high participation rate here. Friday Fun Clubs offers a unique drop-in opportunity for children ages 6 to 12 years old to socialize and engage in games, crafts, and activities on a Friday night. We saw an 8.2% increase in participation from 2023 to 2024. On average, we're seeing 3,500 children and youth visit our drop-in programs each month. In July and August, this averages over 10,000 because of the addition to our playground program, which is a free supervised drop-in program for all Town of Ajax residents between the ages of 6 and 12. Playgrounds provides a great opportunity for children to meet new friends, enjoy active and passive games, crafts, all within their communities. Since COVID-19, we've been rebuilding the program, and in 2025, we're happy to announce that we will be back to our full complement of 27 sites. As the Town of Ajax's older adult population continues to grow, and with the increasing number of older adults maintaining active participation in many traditional recreation activities, it has become increasingly important to implement strategies and partnerships to support our seniors. The Older Adult Operating Model Analysis, coined as OMA, that was approved by Council in 2024, analyzed ways the town can enhance the use of recreation facility spaces, programs, services, and events, and partnerships to better support our older adult population. Areas in which the town is actively supporting our older adults and seniors include the operation of the Ajax Seniors Clubs at St. Andrews and the Village, older adult specific programming, older adult special events, older adult task force, the age-friendly steering committee, along with participation through all traditional recreation amenities and services. RP continues to work in partnership with the Ajax Seniors Club to provide resources for programming such as lunch and learns, fitness, and art programs. Older adults are a very active and engaged participant group within our recreation programs and events. In 2024, we hosted several older adult-focused special events that saw great participation, including the newly added, sold-out 55-plus fall dinner and dance. The defining age of the senior is continuing to change. We are ensuring we are offering programs and services which meet the needs of the younger and the older senior, as well as the working senior. The town offers a variety of programs, but in some cases, in order to offer specific programs, it is more beneficial to partner with the expertise of the field to facilitate these types of programs to increase the access to programs and services for community participation. Contracted services are agreements made with a third party which deliver a service outside of the town's scope of service. The town provides facility spaces, administration, marketing, and registration for the program. The third party provides equipment and the delivery of the service. Partnerships are community organizations which the town has set agreements with to assist in the delivery of a specialized program. Oftentimes, the town provides facility space and marketing to the organization. The RP team continuously analyzes trends in recreation, changes in the community need, and assesses the need to adjust our current offerings. Recently, the Recreation Programs team have implemented some new programs which target marginalized communities, expand program times, and have added programs that complements the town's strategic direction. Adapted Family Open Gym is an adapted drop-in program designed for children with developmental and physical disabilities. This program encourages family participation in a variety of sports and activities. Adaptations are provided on site. Girls-only sports was an identified need through research to participation, which was misproportioned between males and female participants. Girls, women, and gender-diverse people face many barriers participating in sports and recreation and are not well represented on all levels of the Canadian sports system, meaning they oftentimes miss out on the full benefits of participating in sport and recreation. Recreation Programs has continued to support the town's strategic initiative by offering girls-only sports and camps. Some of those programs include Elevate Girls Sports Camp, Girls-Only Basketball, and Girls-Only Soccer. We've also included an adapted girls sport program for those children with developmental and physical disabilities. The supported volunteer experience has provides an inclusion support staff to accompany an individual with a disability in a volunteer experience in a Town of Ajax preschool or children's program. This gives these individuals a positive volunteer experience. River Rocks 2.0 is a program which originally was launched in the River Breeze Housing Community Complex. But following the challenges that were posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, it took time and commitment to rebuild the relationship with our youth in our community. This effort was essential in addressing the increase in disruptive behaviors observed at the Audley Recreation Center. By adapting the structured approach of the program, we've been able to create a safe and engaging space for participants, fostering respect for both the facility and staff, while also offering valuable life skills such as cooking. New this year, the Town of Ajax hosted a River Rocks vs. Heroes, which invited members from the Durham Region Police to play a game of basketball against some of our participants. Afterwards, there was a Q&A for the participants. This participation with the DRPS has formed to give our youth a positive interaction with law enforcement through engaging sports and community engagement. The 55 plus Fall Dance and Dinner was added to the list of our popular older adults events due to the success of the 55 plus Spring Dance and Luncheon. This event occurred in the evening, catering to those working 55 plus residents. This event sold out in 3 days with positive feedback and strong interest to add it to our annual older adult calendar. The craze of the popular game pickleball has hit Ajax, and there is a high demand for playing time, which I'm sure we've all heard. We have added additional drop-in and registered opportunities and continue to assess and add where possible. Lastly, due to customer feedback, we've added additional month to the adult ice program, as there was high interest there as well. I would like to take the time to thank you for your time today. We greatly appreciate council's support in our initiatives, and we look forward to continue to provide positive recreational opportunities for our community.
Thank you for your presentation. We do have a few quick questions for you. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Chair. First things first, thank you for the Playgrounds program. That has saved me and my wife. Summers of Sanity. First question is, we contract some of our summer programming, like Mad Science, whatnot. Can someone apply to be a vendor for that, or how are they contracted?
Yes, through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee. Yes, usually a company will reach out to usually facility bookings, and that comes to myself, and I work with our coordinator who oversees contracted services. We usually take a look at what we are already offering, what we offer in-house, and then we decide whether it's a good option and a good fit for us.
And then when we use schools in some cases for these programs, do we get a discounted rate from the DDSB, or are we paying full freight?
Maybe.
A lot.
I'll address that one through the chair to, sorry, that was to Councillor Lee, Regional Councillor Lee, sorry. We use a number of DDSB schools. However, we have a long-term lease agreement with DDSB, which provides us use for the space and the costs associated with that. So no, it's not, it's at cost for us.
Okay, so we get a pretty good rate on that. That's good. So programs like the seniors dance, you know, I think a bunch of us were at the spring fling with the seniors. I was told it sold out in like moments. Why aren't we doing more of these, for example? And why are we looking for larger locations? You know, obviously the Audley Rec Center, you know, has that new community space. I understand a lot of the residents are from Ward 3, but is there not like a cost model where we can figure out shuttling or something like that just to engage more seniors? Because again, if they love it, then why aren't we doing more of it?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee, we did hear, I think we heard from a few councillors that day, and not just councillors, we heard it from participants as well. And we have taken back that feedback, and we have looked at other times throughout the year that we may be able to provide something. I do like your suggestion of maybe offering a larger dance, so we will take that feedback back.
Great. But again, appreciate everything your team's doing. Like, you know, it really makes this town like a very livable community for working parents, seniors, or youth. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
We do appreciate it.
Regional Councillor Crawford?
Thank you. Thank you for your report. Nothing on senior transportation, so just relax. The River Rocks program, that started years and years ago. I mean, I think at least 16 years ago when I was on the AMHC board. And it was a really, really good program. I'm wondering, why have we moved it out of River Breeze?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford. There was a twofold. One, it was partially the administration at the River Breeze complex. That was the one reasoning. Other reasoning is the population at the Audley Recreation Center has grown, and there was a need there as well.
So is it largely from River Breeze that is going to ARC now, or is this now not just concentrated for that community?
We have a newer population up at Audley that are attending the program.
Is there, and you said something about administration, what does that mean?
So I wasn't here at the time, but from what I've gathered, it was something to do with the administration at the complex, and I don't think it was as easy to run the program.
I got to add a little bit more there, Councillor Crawford. So the residency in that neighborhood, we saw the administration was kind of in, kind of out. They were supportive but not fully involved and engaged in the program with us. We also found the residency in that neighborhood, there was a high turnover, so we weren't getting the participation rates out as well. Kids were coming and going. We tried different avenues about door knocking, looking for a champion in that neighborhood to kind of champion the program, but we just found the high turnover of residency. We weren't getting the kids out in there. Then ultimately COVID-19 hit, program stopped, and then we repurposed it up at the Audley Recreation Center.
Have we ever looked at maybe doing, like, I understand Audley's very popular and good, but have we ever thought about kind of looking at trying to do, I believe the need is great in River Breeze. And I just wondered, is there an opportunity to revisit having it at the community center? Sometimes, I mean, I do appreciate the turnover, but like transportation, let's face it, is a barrier. And so just wondering, is there an appetite to maybe try to work with the administration? And I can certainly speak to the administration, that's the problem. But because I think there's a need there. I do think there's a need, and we do such a good job at it. And I know it was very, very successful when we did it years ago, but I'm just wondering if there may be an appetite to continue what you're doing at Audley, but maybe if we can see if there's a hybrid kind of thing we can do in River Breeze.
Absolutely. We are actually investigating moving it to the McLean Community Center and expanding
that
the
would be
program.
easier, yeah.
We do want to see this program in the needed community. So what we would do in that instance is we reach out to the administration in the community housing to promote that program as well. Facility space is another issue. Like River Rocks program's expanded. We have gym activity and things like that where they don't have the program space like the McLean Community Center would.
Right.
So we're actively investigating expansion.
Yeah, McLean Center puts it a little bit closer within walking distance for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you need any help with that, please don't hesitate to reach out. The swimming program, have we figured out registration yet? Like, I still get people frustrated about not being able to get in.
Yeah, it's so we've lowered the time to 7 a.m. Basically, it's capacity. You know, we have X amount of pool space, X amount of kids per class. We've seen improvements since that we've done an Ajax resident-only registration period.
Yes.
By the time non-resident time comes around, the week later, the majority of the classes are full. We
By Ajax residents? Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good.
So basically, we work with the families that may get onto wait lists. We preach the wait list with our residents. Sign up for all the programs that you're interested in, and what our staff do after the fact is the ones that didn't get into a program, other people did get into the program they wanted. They're on a wait list for a different program. We take them off. We put other people in. So there's a lot of background work that occurs after the registration period. So that's why through our education with the residents, we encourage them, sign up for everything, get on a wait list. Don't just, you know, cut out because you didn't get into the program you wanted. Our staff actively work with families after the registration period.
Excellent.
too.
As long as Ajax residents are getting the opportunity to get the programming first, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So the older adults, hello, I am. I love all the programming that you do. I continually hear, we didn't know anything about it. And I know we have the same problem as counselors. How are we reaching out to seniors that maybe aren't part of the structured clubs? How are we reaching out to them? And is there something that we can do to help you with that?
Absolutely, yes. We're working through the OMA and the recommendations through the OMA on communication. We did hear that loudly through the consultations. We do the best we can. You know, we put it out in social media. We do paper, print. We have the 55-plus guide that we put in town hall, libraries. We deliver them to seniors' residences. So we are actively looking at other communication avenues. And we'll definitely use council as well to, you know, you guys are connected to the community.
Yeah, because we have community meetings and, you know, our average age would be probably 55 plus at our community meetings. So if there's a way that maybe we can grab some of those flyers and we can distribute too.
We can
right?
definitely make more available to you if needed as
Okay,
well.
that would be great. The youth programs, I'm just wondering, do we ever coordinate with any of our external programmers? Like Girls Inc. does a fantastic job with girls. So some of our girls-only programming, do we ever coordinate with them to come in and talk with them?
Yeah, you want to come up and just say something? We just so happen to have our youth coordinator here,
There we
Ashley.
go.
Yes, we do work with Girls Inc. We had the Girls Inc. program at ACC on Thursdays.
Oh, great.
And it was from 6 to 8 p.m. And it fizzled through COVID. And I'm trying to bring them back, but I know sometimes it's like funding for them. But we do partner with them. We try to include them in a youth week. Any like little events we have, we always invite them to do tables. So I try to outreach as much as I can with all the organizations in
Awesome.
Ajax. Yeah.
Yes, and obviously Durham Youth, what is that? Durham Youth, used to be Joanne's house. Yeah, I'm assuming we coordinate everything with
Yes,
them
a few
too?
years ago, I think we donated to them through
Yeah.
YAC. We did get like a gift card.
Okay.
Kind of a little event for them. So
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, great.
Yep.
The drop-in programs at the park are absolutely golden. My kids, my grandkids, everything, I just absolutely love the program, so absolutely will support that. And the art program, I had my granddaughter in the art program at Lincoln Alexander. It was outstanding. It was amazing. So that was, I just wanted to say from my own personal experience that she thoroughly enjoyed every minute of that. So thank you for doing everything you're doing to make our town interesting and fun. And we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Dyes. Well, Regional Councillor Crawford has asked all the questions. No, thank you so much, Ms. McGar, and shout out to Mr. Norris, Ms. McWhirter. Thank you so much for the rec programs that are offered. It's fantastic. I use them. I'm a recent member of the of the Town of Ajax Zumba family, terrible member, and the Saturday Morning Fitness Club, and my granddaughter is now using the swimming program. My kids love the program, so certainly the work you do is well researched, well put together, and well offered. So thank you for that. The question I had was about the stat on slide 4, your registered program highlights about the participant fill rate. Just wondering, is that all Ajax residents, or is that Ajax plus?
This was pulled from ActiveNet, so it would have been all of our participants, which it's not just Town of Ajax.
Okay. And these programs, I know the swimming has the Ajax residents first, and then it opens up to everybody else. Are these programs the same?
Programs are the same, yes.
Okay.
So we stagger an aquatics for Town of Ajax registration date, programs Town of Ajax registration date, and the following week we do a non-residence registration
Okay,
date.
perfect. Okay, thank you. Keep up the great work. Thank you. That was my only question, Chair.
Thank you. All my questions have been asked, so my only comment is I never get any complaints. I think you
That's
should know that. I never get, never get any complaints. The only, what you would call quote-unquote a complaint is that, can we have more of this? That's it.
Well,
So-
that we'd love to hear.
Right? Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Okay. Yes, can we vote on the information, please, to receive? Oh. You were talking. Thank you. So that concludes the presentations for today on our agenda. There's no closed session, so can I have motion to adjourn? Thank you, Councillor Lee. Vote, please.